Welcome to CinePro, where we bring your favorite movies back to life with quick recaps, hidden details, and everything you missed. The movie The Killing Room begins. Dr. Emily is an agent for the National Crime Agency, or NCA, and specializes in military psychology. She's an expert at reading body language and can tell if someone is lying. One day, she's summoned by Dr. Phillips, whose research she's used for her own work. Phillips wants her to participate in a classified project in which she must react to a selection of pre-recorded material. Emily signs the contract, and Phillips reminds her that this room and these tapes don't exist before starting the video. The recording shows footage of Test Group 17 in a white room with just a few chairs and tables. Phillips confirms it's the same room that Emily can see in front of her. After a cleanup crew cleans the area, a nurse opens the door to let the first test subject in. Carrie has been given a long questionnaire to fill, and she's surprised by some questions like which holiday she would cancel. When she accidentally breaks her pencil, she asks for another one, but nobody answers. Soon, the nurse arrives with the next test subject, and Carrie gets another pencil. The new guy is Tony, who notices that the tables and chairs have been screwed to the floor. He looks at the questionnaire and is also surprised by the questions, like the one asking him what he would give up 5 years of his life for. Next, Crawford comes in and sits right in front of Carrie, which makes her a bit uncomfortable. He answers all the questions pretty quickly as if he didn't care much. Lastly, they're joined by Paul, who chooses the chair away from the table. Crawford soon finishes filling the questionnaire and finds it funny that everyone's hesitating so much, so he starts helping Carrie in a very condescending way. Emily tells Phillips that this is a classic case of hierarchy and subordination. She did an experiment like this with a couple whose relationship didn't survive the project, but Phillips says this will be much more complex. After finishing his questionnaire, Crawford chats with Carrie, telling her that he often volunteers for experiments like this because he needs the money. However, he thinks this place is fancier than the typical labs, and that they'll get paid more than the usual $50 or $100. At that moment, the voiceover announces that Mother is coming in, and Phillips enters the room. He introduces himself as the supervisor, but first he has to ask some routine questions. He confirms that everyone is an American citizen, that they're of sound mind, and that they weren't forced to come. Then he explains that they'll be testing the nature and limitations of the human psyche. The test is divided into 4 phases that will automatically start when he leaves. It lasts 8 hours, and the payment will be $250. Phillips asks them to write a contact number on the questionnaire, and Paul says he doesn't have one. Next, he makes them put all their personal effects in envelopes, including their phones. Tony explains he's expecting a call from his girlfriend, but his phone is taken away anyway. Phillips announces that each phase will eliminate a person, but no matter the order, they'll all get paid the same. He nicely asks Carrie for her name, only to suddenly grab her face and shoot her in the head. The others panic, locking the door behind him. Crawford checks on Carrie and confirms she's dead. Tony laughs and claps, thinking this is all a prank for YouTube. An angry Crawford drags Tony to the body to force him to face the truth, and Tony finally panics. He starts screaming for help and throws himself at the windows to no avail. Both Tony and Crawford kick the walls and try to move the panels, but it's all pointless. Tony realizes this is the test. They want to see how people react to someone getting shot in front of them. Emily asks Phillips how he got away with this, so he explains that the family reports them missing, and the case never gets solved. Then, Emily looks at the paperwork and notices the mention of American casualties, concluding this can't be the government. Phillips confirms that the MK program has always been outside the government, but doesn't answer her other questions, promising things will make sense soon. In the room, the men wonder how this could be happening since the experiment was normally advertised in the newspaper's classifieds. They realize they have no idea where they are after the long drive that brought them here. Suddenly, they hear a beep and a hatch on the wall opens to drop the gun that killed Carrie. Paul picks it up and points it at the others, thinking that the 4-phase elimination means only one can survive. Crawford makes him check the bullets, and Paul discovers there's only one. So Crawford thinks the gun's purpose isn't to kill, but to help them get out. Tony complains, and Paul yells in return. So Crawford asks them to calm down. The windows are probably bulletproof, thus shooting them would be wasting the bullet. Another beep echoes in the room, and a countdown appears on a small screen as a voice in the speaker says that they have 2 hours left. The hatch drops a paper sheet in the room, and the voice asks them to answer the question. Crawford picks the paper sheet up and reads, "What number do Americans choose most frequently between 1 and 33? There are also rules. The person with the guess farthest from the correct answer will be the next casualty, and if they refuse to answer, they all get eliminated." Phillips is surprised that Emily hasn't asked for the test goals yet, but she knows that if she asks that, the interview would be over. He asks her for an observation, so Emily notices that the rules were written in a stilted way on purpose, as if using English as a second language. Phillips congratulates her, saying she's the fastest person to pick up on that. She then points out that the MK program was shut down by 3 presidents because of civilian casualties, so she wonders how he can be doing this. Phillips explains that after 9/11, they were out of options and their actions have been granted full amnesty. He shares a quote from his superior, reminding her that anything they do is also being done by their enemies. In the room, Tony is jumping on the table to try to break the lights to no avail. Crawford hears a noise, so he and Tony put their ears to the floor vents. There are voices talking in a foreign language, and Tony wonders if they were kidnapped by terrorists. But Crawford points out that this could be a trick to mess with their heads. Paul then notices that someone scratched the word "help" on the wall. Everyone takes a closer look and finds a bunch of names as well. They think there are other words too, but they've been painted over and are hard to read. Tony gets some of Carrie's blood and spreads it on the scratches so they can read them. Some words ask for help while others ask for prayers. There's also the date December 25th, which makes Tony think that some Muslims killed people on Christmas. After checking every wall, the guys still have no clues. A frustrated Tony puts his jacket over Carrie's body. Phillips tells Emily that the experiment is constantly changing and evolving, and she must help it do so. The test used to take 6 to 8 hours, but since they added those names on the walls, they've sped up the process. In the room, the men have started to discuss possible answers, but they can't agree on a good one. A frustrated Paul starts hitting the clock, which makes it turn off. He gets ready to shoot the window, so Tony tackles him to stop him from wasting the bullet, which could have bounced all over the room. The gun has fallen, so Crawford kicks it toward Tony, saying he doesn't want it. At that moment, a hatch opens, so the men rush to take a look, but they don't see anybody on the other side. Tony inserts his hand in the hole, but he can't find anything useful either. Afterward, the guys hide under the table and talk in whispers to make a plan. While a terrified Paul stays in a corner, Tony inserts his hand with the gun through the hole and the hatch immediately closes, trapping his wrist. Paul and Crawford help him pull, and Tony manages to remove his hand, which comes out with new wounds but no gun. Crawford uses his shirt to bandage Tony's injury while the hatch closes and the clock reappears on a different wall. While watching all this, Phillips asks Emily if she has a problem with it. She assures him she doesn't, but when she goes to the bathroom, she throws up and has a breakdown. In the room, the guys sit at the table and discuss the question. Paul is on the verge of a panic attack, and Crawford wants them to pick the same number so they all die or nobody does. Before answering, Paul and Tony share the names of their loved ones so the others can contact them if they die. At first, Crawford says nobody needs to know about him, but after they share a prayer, he finally tells the others about his daughter, whom he never gets to see. Time finally runs out and the voice asks for an answer. Tony and Crawford say 7 like they agreed on, but Paul answers 17. The voice announces that the next casualty has been selected, and the ventilation ducts are open to fill the room with sleeping gas. The men cover their faces but quickly pass out. Then a medical unit enters the room and takes the trio away on stretchers. The tape ends, and Philip sends orders for the 3 men to be brought back to the room. He reveals that the events of the tape were recorded that morning, so the men have been out for a little over 3 hours. After reminding her that if she doesn't share observations, she gets fired, Phillips gives Emily a lab coat and a mask and they enter the room together. Emily can't stop staring at the sleeping bodies and thinking about poor Carrie. The door closes and Phillips explains that the room was thoroughly designed to fit the experiment, calling it calculated intimidation. Now Emily has to watch how Phillips takes a gun and shoots Tony to kill him. She manages to stay calm while they leave the room and return to the window where Phillips tells her to give the order to continue the test. Classical music is played in the room to wake up the survivors. Crawford confirms that Tony is dead and Paul has a breakdown. A furious Crawford throws Paul against the wall and starts beating him up for saying a different number. A gun is thrown through the hatch and Crawford grabs it to point it at Paul, who calls him one of them and tells him to go ahead. However, Crawford pulls away when he hears noises in the vent ducts. The hatch opens and another paper sheet is dropped in the room. Crawford notices that the question comes with a hint, so he tears the hint off and hides it in his pocket before reading the "Here is the translation to English," as requested. Question to Paul. It says, "Where does the USA rank on the international list of average IQ?" The person with the guess farthest from the correct answer will be the last casualty. If they don't answer or say the same thing, they both get killed. The hint said that the answer is outside the top 10, but Crawford doesn't share that. Phillips tells Emily that people will do anything to survive and puts down the keycard before leaving the room. Paul starts having another breakdown, saying that last time he gave a different number by accident. Crawford doesn't believe him, pointing out Paul did what he had to do to survive. The scientists play the recorded voices in the ducts again, and Crawford recognizes them as Muslims praying. So he concludes Tony was right. He drags Paul under the table and they discuss the situation and whisper, but the microphones pick up everything they say. Anyway, Crawford keeps telling Paul that they need to get out and inform people about the experiment, but Paul wants to follow orders to survive. The scientists announce that Phillips has chosen the final candidate, so while everyone is distracted, Emily steals the card key. Phillips starts talking about how hard it is to kill a man, and Emily realizes he knew who the final subject would be since the beginning thanks to the questionnaires. In the room, Paul still refuses to cooperate, so Crawford gets on the table and starts jumping, hoping to reach the vents. After lots of effort, he manages to punch the lights enough times to break them, and shattered glass falls all over the place. Paul uses the distraction to get back the gun. Crawford removes a few metal pieces and jumps to hold on to the edge of the hole, but he can't climb up, so he asks Paul for help. As Paul grabs his legs and tries to push him up, the door opens and two scientists come in to record them. Paul makes a final effort to push Crawford up, which finally gets him inside the vent ducts. Then Paul tries to tackle the two scientists who immediately tase him to knock him out. Crawford crawls through the vents for a while until he finds a grill that could take him to the roof. He starts pushing it to no avail. Two scientists on the roof approach the grill and spray sleeping gas on Crawford to knock him out too. After Crawford is brought back to the room, Emily finally snaps. She waits until the scientists are gone and rushes to the door to open it with the key card. As the alarm announces a security breach, Emily wakes the guys up and makes them run. However, this is just her imagination. She's actually standing by the window and watching the two unconscious men. Phillips realizes she has the key and takes it back, saying she's not ready. Emily swears she is and concludes that the goal of the experiment is to find apoptosis. This is a mechanism in the human body that makes the mind understand that a cell must be willing to surrender for the greater good. Paul wakes up and checks on Crawford, who asks about the time. They have only 30 minutes left, so they discuss possible answers. Using the hint he read earlier, Crawford lies to Paul and tells him that he read in a magazine that the answer is 5. He also describes what he remembers about the building layout from their arrival so they can be ready to escape when the door opens. Then Crawford starts covering his body with the blood of their dead friends, saying the security won't catch them if they're slippery. Paul cries and refuses to do the same, so Crawford gives him the gun and tells him to shoot Phillips. They agree that Paul will say 5 and Crawford will say 4. Crawford keeps comforting a panicking Paul, telling him that this plan will help them stop the experiments and save lives. When time finally runs out, Paul says he won't be able to make it and tries to self-delete, successfully becoming apoptosis. However, the scientists come in and shoot Crawford first. While a screaming Paul is dragged away, Phillips tells Emily that only a few subjects have passed the experiment. 1 out of 20 ordinary people has the disposition to become a civilian weapon. Emily realizes that this program is creating self-detonating bombers like the religions from the Middle East have as a way to fight fire with fire. Afterward, Phillips congratulates Paul for being a good patriot, but Paul pushes him to run away. As he searches for an exit, he sees Emily and asks for help, but she locks the door to block him. Paul curses her as he pounds on the door, then he starts running again. As a team enters the room to clean it up, Phillips proudly accepts Emily into the program. Security continues to close specific doors to guide Paul toward a particular room. Emily realizes that today was only phase 1, which was the step to find suitable subjects. Paul enters a room with other men who also passed phase 1, and a voice announces that now it's time for phase 2. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can watch more videos like this. Thanks for watching.